okay, we can take a moment, please, and give you some feedback on what a nice job you've done. Do you want to start, Mr. Ansel?
All right, well, your group seemed to focus a lot about pork barrel as one of the systems of our government. It seems to be a big problem for you with congressional district drawing. You might want to have offered some alternatives to getting around that, but that was a good thing. You know, you're the first group that's actually mentioned Madison 51 and Montesquieu. You think that would have come up, but you're the first group to do that. We always like hearing you're the first group. It means you thought something that some others didn't, which means you had to do some more preparation. So that's always good. And you also said that our system is more deliberative. And I would have thought that every group would have said that, but that's also very uncommon. So again, that's another plus for you. And I liked your phrase, that you haven't heard, affirmative gerrymandering, almost like it's affirmative action. I thought that was very interesting, because you're trying to draw the distinction. It makes it very hard for legislators to comply with the Supreme Court. They almost have to violate the Constitution no matter what they do. And you had a good discussion of the no confidence vote. You said you like the American system better. And that last point that you made, also a very unusual point, because everyone hates safe districts. They all think that's a terrible thing. That only 10% of the seats are ever up or in. You say, no, there's something good about safe districts, because it means that minority groups get represented. That's not something you usually hear. So that's a very positive thing for you. A couple of things on, just to think about. When you say something like self-interest is the only way that someone can represent constituents, in political science and constitutional law, it's rare that someone can say always or only or never. And certainly John F. Kennedy didn't write a book called Profiles in Self-Interest, it isn't what we generally want to see, although sometimes, of course, sometimes it's a good thing. I mean, we want people to represent the constituents and the people who put them in. There's a plus to it, but there's just a subtlety there. But each one of you really wanted to talk. You all had done a lot of work. So you're a very strong team, but you're also strong individually, so you should feel very good about your own performance as well as the team. It's clear why you're here in the top 10, and it's obvious. So that was really a great job.
Great, thank you, Rick.
Thought you did a fine job in your opening remarks. More specifically, Elliot, I'm glad you brought up Shaw versus Reno, the Vandermeer case. I thought those were critical from my perspective. I wish we could have fleshed that out a little bit more, the importance of, or the efficacy and limits of majority-minority votes, or how we could possibly limit partisan gerrymandering. Your discussion about Justice Kennedy, I thought that was a wonderful quotation. Your reference to the trustee role, I thought you slid into that one very nicely, and so that was very good. Colette, I liked your discussion of Reynolds versus Sims, although I want to remind you Reynolds versus Sims dealt with state legislative upper houses, not congressional districts. But your discussion of the veto, and you were quick to throw out very specific and precise provisions of the Constitution, showed your knowledge. Also like the fact that even towards the end you were able to come back to the Federalist and the Anti-Federalists and the beginning of political parties and how that affected the question of advocacy for districts. I think you made a compelling argument there. Jack, I agree with my colleague that bringing up Montesquieu is very good. That's the philosophical underpinnings of this representation in great part. You did a great job on talking about the advantage and disadvantage of each of the systems. I liked your discussion of Madison, number 10, ambition, the incumbency factor in regard to whether, who gets elected and who stays in. I thought that was an excellent discussion. Sylvie, I like your discussion of the divided government, Madison number 51. That was the ambition must be made to counter ambition. You made reference to Senator Shelby from Alabama. You made a reference to Arne Duncan. You gave specific examples of how people may or may not represent their districts, and you also did a very fine job talking about competitive and safe districts. And Juan, I liked your discussion too, distinction between the House and the Senate in terms of representation. You brought a specific example of Utah in regard to whether or not it's representative, and you talked about the pork barrel. One of the things I'd like to have fleshed out a little more was the influence of money into these districts and how they influence how people vote. And that sometimes may be undermining exactly what our representatives are about. And finally, what is it they represent? When a member of Congress puts the hand on the, puts the hand supposedly on the Constitution and is sworn in, or the Bible, the only thing they swear to do is uphold the Constitution. Not to represent their district, not to represent their state, certainly not political party because they weren't in existence when the Constitution was written, but to uphold and represent the Constitution of the United States. And I think that's something we should all remember. Did a great job. You're well trained. Good work in the competition. Good luck in the competition.
I'd like to say, I have a couple of things to say. They certainly have analyzed your contributions better than I possibly could, but I just want to say a couple of things. Number one, look around yourselves and be aware that you are now of a very small number of people who've sat at your table and testified before anybody sitting on this bench. And even if you're not before Congress right now, in fact, I mean, maybe we're not congressmen right now, but you might find yourselves one day representing a position or testifying before Congress, or even better, being members of the Senate or Congress yourselves. You certainly have shown your ability to do so. And I don't have any connection with Colorado except for I have some cousins who live in Colorado. And one of them is the reason I'm in this program. He was from your school and was in your position in 2000 or 2001, and this experience has changed his life from that point on. And the family was thrilled to find out last week that he was just accepted to Oxford University in England to do a PhD in political science. So hopefully some of you might feel inspired that you can take this experience and go that far. So congratulations, all of you. It's a pleasure listening to you. Thank you very much.